These are just some figures about digitalization, a growing phenomenon day after day. Very soon, mobile telephony contracts are going to exceed the number of inhabitants on Earth. On Facebook, people watch millions and millions of video clips on YouTube and download from Google Play and other sites. Creativity has changed the way businesses sell, produce, and distribute contents and interact with their customers. But how is such a transition happening? A recent survey can help us understand how the use of media is changing revenue generation and the value chain, both in Europe and in Italy. Since 2003, people have been spending plus 20% of their time on such new media. European consumers, on average, spend 60% of their leisure time on these new platforms, the internet, movies, and television. In the last decade, the revenues generated by the Italian creative industry have grown thanks to the digital technologies, but this growth has not been consistent across the industry. Changes reflect themselves on the value chain, from a one-way model where each production element had the same value. We are now moving to an architecture of the creative ecosystem which is more fluid and dynamic, with changing interactions, and such changes are translating into new services and business models in each different industry. Spotify, iTunes, and similar services have revolutionized the music industry. Online, multi-device, social, and streaming have created a value proposition, the success of which is due to consumers. So while YouTube is becoming the reference platform for user-generated content, as well as a reference point for the industry of conventional content. So this is due to Content ID. This tool allows for free to copyright holders to identify videos uploaded by users containing their own contents. The copyright is therefore protected because you can decide ahead of time what to do in case a content is identified and generate revenues from that, calculate statistics, or block their visualization on YouTube. A very successful example in the field of digital payments is the Financial Times. In mid-2012, the number of digital subscriptions exceeded 300,000 users, way more than paper subscriptions, a 30% growth rate year on year. These days, 35 to 40% of revenues come from advertising versus 85% just a decade ago. So then, what challenges and opportunities are are to be faced by Creative Italy? Let's ask experts, the front runners. This is big responsibility. Claudio Giua from the Espresso Group. Let's start from the end, from what Jervis said. He said there is no solution, the agreement, the French-German model. The only solution is great innovation and risk-taking. Is this what you are doing? Yes, both the French and German solution are not the solution. The French solution, in a nutshell, results from a political agreement between the French government and the American government. And the Obama administration, they signed an agreement whereby, a 5-year financing of 60 billion euros is being given to French publishers. In agreement with Google, they need to innovate, they need to introduce innovation. There is this commission which approves such innovation, and they are then entitled to receive this money. Clearly, this is a very small experience. 12 million euros a year split by 12 publishers is just peanuts. I mean, the German solution, on the other hand, is a good one. Starting from the 1st of August, the snippets, the contents, snippets, as it were, not well defined in terms of size, must be paid by those who have an authorization. This affects Google, and not only Google. Aggregators too are affected by this. Google in Germany, as they confirmed before, have started proceeding. Publishers are introduced into Google Plus. They need to say ahead of time whether they want to be part of this or not, but leaving, Google indexation mechanism and systems can for sure can worsen, the search results, even though Fabio Iacarone says this is not true. The quality of the relationship with one's search does improve your performance. So leaving the Google indexation system may be a risky business. So we just need to wait and see what's going to happen after the 1st of August. In Italy, we are in a very unusual situation. Everybody agrees that a third solution is required, and it must be based upon innovation, not a piece of legislation, not the French solution. Journalists, though with some delay, have reached an agreement. What about publishers, aside from the agreement with Google? When it comes to innovation, what are you doing? Well, as far as the newsrooms are concerned, Mario's position is very clear, and also the solution found by La Stampa is a good one. Via Solferino, we based just a few hundreds of meters away from here. It's not very easy to do that. We changed offices 8 or 9 years ago. We relocated, and it was just the beginning of this revolution. In the UK, they were just developing integrated newsrooms. In Italy, we started late. If I may, the only publisher which started off on the right foot to go into the digital world was the L'Espresso Group with Repubblica.it for 3 years now. Repubblica.it is almost of age. The other publishers somehow were defensive. The Corriere started late, even though they caught up, because La Stampa also is doing great work. Publishers, however, continued and still continue believing, still keep believing that protecting their core product, paper, newspapers, is more important than the digital publication, digital publishing. So this is still an issue. The number of digital subscribers at La Repubblica is not small. Yes, 150,000 certified starting from last January. In addition, we have, of course, conventional newspapers, so it's an interesting situation. even more so for those offering a specific product, a specific web-based product. Il Sole 24 Ore works even better than generalist dailies like Repubblica or Corriere della Sera. There is a very strong shift from paper to digital copies. An accountant who used to buy Il Sole for his records are now reading Il Sole online because they can get information easier and faster. For us, with us, it's a bit different. Claudio Giua's Twitter account every day reports at least 4 or 5 news on the media world. New York Times and Financial Times are not as equally successful, right? Well, they use different payment systems. They are now resembling each other. Both offer specific products. Financial Times offers, of course, a financial product. The other one is the New York Times, one of the largest and greatest dailies in the world, along with The Economist. The Economist also is extremely successful in the digital version. On their side, they can count on the strength of their ancient top quality journalism, and the British, the most widely online read dailies are the British ones. The Daily Mirror is #1 in terms of digital readers. The Guardian is investing heavily in its digital product. They have, a global readership ranging from Australia to Singapore. Of course, we are Italian newspapers, and it's unlikely for us to attract, Italians living in Canada. Laura Donnini, let's discuss about books. You are an expert on books. Well, it's fun, just imagining, seeing people discussing about the digital arena. We woke up, as it were, just 3 years ago, because the digital revolution started with Amazon and then Apple with iPads, and then the crisis came. We are now seeing, the first results. In Italy, the digital, well, not just in Italy, generally speaking, digital books are considered like e-books. In Italy, e-books account for 3% of the overall market versus 23% in the States. But digital books are not just that. They are a different way of conceiving the business. The process is transformed entirely, and publishers are now trying to be prepared to adapt themselves to this change. The competitive edge resulting from the production and distribution of digital books can be extremely large. Everything changes, with the digital technology. So production and distribution are no longer distinctive features. Technology, data asset management systems for a real-time production across formats and devices. These are real winning strategies. So every publisher should find a new way of promoting books.
The book industry has always been a B2B industry. So basically acquisition, I print, I produce, I distribute, and I might find a reader. Now the reader is at the center. So now the publisher has to change its skin and give an additional service to authors and to readers. So what do you mean by an additional service? For the readership, which is our primary target, you have to give a reading experience, which is richer, easier cross-device, but which is also enriched with social experience, social writing, social reading. Everyone has something to say today. I'm sorry that Mr. Polillo said we need time. We don't have time any longer. We are in the midst of a revolution, and today authors like to see their books published in Il Corriere della Sera or La Repubblica. As a matter of fact, most readers find books with Google search or through communities or social mediums. The word of mouth exploded through the digital media, so we have much more production. Now we start talking about self-publishing. It's not that the contents have the value of traditional books, but there is a lot of content on the net. Piracy, paradoxically, in my opinion, is the second risk. The first problem or the first risk is obscurity. Well, it's the first time we talk of piracy today, and it's already big news because a few years ago people would start talking about piracy at 9 o'clock in the morning. Well, I said that to say that it's not that important. So, the discovery of contents become the first topic, and all publishers, to a different extent, not don't use social media as the real promotion tool. We say transformation from broadcasting in communication from one to many, but how many publishers are equipped to actually listen? How many of them are actually ready to establish a dialogue? There are huge cultural changes, so we are in the midst of this transformation, but time is running up. If we take the US statistics, 25% of titles available on the net come from self-publishing. It's a growing world. So publishers should not be just publishers, but they should become producers, perhaps. They should be able to create contents, not just to acquire them. So, there is a paradigm shift. So what do you expect? What do you imagine by publishers creating contents? Usually they acquire content, but there is also a creation part. So if some technologies, I'm thinking of handbooks, if on Google Trend you push the button and you discover that cupcakes are the trend of the moment, some publishers might get ready to make a book on cupcakes and promoted it through Google or communities, social media, I don't know, like cooking communities. I saw a book with the QR code. As a matter of fact, what type of books are we moving to? I don't like the QR codes very much. Well, books in their sacred nature perhaps will not to be touched. The change is the way in which books enter into contact with potential readers. So QR code is a way like to see the first chapter, to try to have a first contact with the book. And I think that Google has not been fully understood in its potential. The service it provides authors and publishers, it has huge opportunities. The fact that one of the main elements of choice for an author is the fact that you can have a contact. The presentations of writers, of authors are important. So if you have an hangout on G Plus and you have a conversation between the authors and thousands of potential readers, is a way to bring the content to the readership. We said 3%, 23% before. Well, they are 3 years ahead of us. Technologically, here as Italians, we're telling this also to our Italian friends, we are not lagging behind. We are the highest cell phone users. Well, first of all, there is a problem of the English language because the English language allows an availability of titles that we don't have in Italy. So, first point, we talk about 40, 50,000 available titles and just novelties, and we don't have a digitalized catalog. And then publishers try to keep prices high in this view of protection, whereas in the US prices have gone down, and this has favored development. And then tablets, and smartphones will be a main driver of growth. According to estimates, we will get to 15% in 2-3 years' time. So we are just lagging behind, but the acceleration rate is there. So you're very upbeat with respect to the future. Yes, I am. We talked about piracy just once. Now it's your turn. Shall we talk about cinema? Well, good morning, everyone. First of all, I am happy because I work with Warner Bros., which is very innovative. I remember my boss of the time became a boss of the studios. So the boss of the digital sector became the boss of the entire studios. And he told us today our consumers find the products in a totally different way. So there has been a huge acceleration. We have a big opportunity. There is a lot of profit that is being made by others for the time being in this disruption. But he said the good thing is that consumers still love films, still love our products. The worst mistake we could make is to fight against this technology change and against the consumer habits. We cannot go against this. We just have to anticipate it. We have to guide as much as possible because technology is there. So these words were uttered 4 or 5 years ago by a person who has been appointed, as I said, head of the studios. And he said, to do that, we need to change our business models. We cannot leave it unchanged. So all business models which were used up until now, some will have to be changed. So he said we need to distribute products through all platforms. We don't want to have the concept of exclusivity. All existing platforms, if they are reliable and serious, must have the Warner Bros. Product. We have to distribute the entire product. We have 6,000 films. The entire catalog must be distributed. We have to change our business model. Video on demands in the past were available 5 months after the DVD. Today, they are available at the same time. For some months, we have started selling films first in the digital format and then in DVD. I'd like to quote a case of these days. A film was released in the US in April. 42 is the title. It's a true story. The first black player in the National Baseball League with Harrison Ford, and they are talking about a possible Oscar. Since the topic of baseball is not that famous in the rest of the world, in many countries this film was not released in the movie theaters, but we released the film on the 2nd of July all over the world in the digital format for all those countries in which the film was not released in movie theaters. Now I was checking and it's among the first 20 films. Is it in English? Well, no. Last night it was released in Italian. Up until yesterday we had just the English version. Now we have it in Italian as well. So, it's something that was just unthinkable a few months ago. We posted the film on Facebook. These things are happening in the US, but they will be happening in Italy as well. In Italy, we have two problems. First of all, the bandwidth, and then I don't want to say piracy, but let's put it this way, lack of rules, because we need to change our business models, but we need to do it in a world where there are clear-cut rules. Are you afraid of posting a film on Facebook which can be taken by pirates. Yes, there is the risk. But since our consumers are on Facebook, we need them to we have to give them the film on Facebook as well. We have to follow the habits of our consumers, and I agree with this. I am sorry, but we're not going to advertise this film on Il Corriere della Sera. We have to advertise it on Facebook. We mustn't be shy. And then there are also cell phones. So films on very small screens. Well, consumers have different tastes, and we must make them happy, all of them. A cell phone can be used for very short films. There are many films which have become famous for just a couple of scenes. We have seen that these scenes are very valuable. There are certain scenes of films which have been seen on YouTube for 25,000 times. And some people are willing to pay a few cents just for a few seconds. You know, there is a very scene in Blade Runner, for instance, you want to have it on your cell phone. It's just like what we did with ringtones. Yes, we download just short scenes. Yes, initially we have these two limitations, but for us as a company, as an industry, we believe that the internet is a big opportunity. But we need to be able to change our business model and to adapt it to customer needs. Well, we are the last ones because we were the first ones to get out of the tunnel. Yes, artists, singers have adapted. Well, I invited Daniele Silvestri, the Italian singer, the Italian artist, because he's very open. But then, of course, what I have said to artists is nothing will ever be the same. Just forget the past. You know, it's a bit radical, but that's the way it is. And it's interesting because what Warner used to say is what we used to say 10 years ago. Just a couple of comments. First of all, we were not helped by anybody to get out of the tunnel. Well, at the beginning, you were affected by this phenomenon very dramatically, yes, and then we don't like to cry over spoiled milk. You know, you have to take the right decisions. I hope other industries will learn from our mistakes. And I'm saying this because I was involved in this since the second half of the 1990s, the digital revolution. The first response of the industry was that of building a barrier, a wall. You know, there were codes inside the files for them not to be copied. These are just useless tricks. The winning strategy today is to be close to consumers, to give them music where they like, when they like it, and how they like it, and also at the right price. And I'm talking from a country, well, we are lagging behind. Today we say music. Last year Sony Music had 36% of its turnover through digital media. So, you know, you can be on a flight and go to Stockholm and in 2 hours, and they have more than 2 million subscribers to Spotify. So, you know, Mazza showed 0.3%, and that's a mix between 20% in Switzerland and the very small figures of Italy. But things have changed here as well. You said you might even sell the scene of a film. You, with music, moved from one album to a single song. So how's the composition of your turnover? Well, the complexity has increased dramatically. At the beginning, we were just moving boxes with the plastic products. We had like a vinyl and then a smaller product. Today, we have a set of contents that we convert into revenue. The big transformation is that today our first client is Apple, which didn't exist 10 years ago. We are in the house of our second client, YouTube, and contents are free to the public. So there is a different perception of value paid by advertisers. Spotify, and by the way, Italy is the last country in which Spotify opened, and this is very telling, I guess. In fact, I asked Daniel Ek a few years ago, the founder of Spotify, how is it that Italy is lagging behind? And he said because they are not paying us or because they pay after 4 months. But this is another topic. Having said that, it's clear that a singer like Daniele Silvestri or like Claudio Baglioni or like FedEx, a very famous rapper today, have a completely different model to exploit video, audio contents, different devices, digital, many things together. And this has created a very painful transformation process. Why do you say painful? 50% of jobs gone over the last 10 years. But then there are new professional profiles. Now the trend has changed, even because to tackle this market we need different skills. So we are introducing new skills, new figures, people who have digital marketing skills. Today the most Daft Punk is the Sony record that is sold the most in the world. So it's key for us. We do entertainment, we sell emotions, and we were very distant from our consumers. We didn't know them. Today, it's just the opposite. Always it's door to door. We have a very direct contact with everyone. We have a couple of minutes. I'd like to ask you a very quick question. I start from a personal story. This morning I went to swim in Rome and I was taking a shower and people some discussing. A person said he had to hire a shop and he had problems, and other people said, I have a shop to put for hire. So I've discovered that many people have shops and they want to give them for hire. And this is not good news. But what about bookshops? What about music stores? So the world has changed. Well, we have the duty to save bookshops because today they are still the place where people go and buy. But apart from that, the human component that remains in the role of a bookseller, a person providing advice, something that cannot be found behind the Amazon algorithm. Yes, of course, it's very convenient to buy from anywhere, but we think that the physical aspect of a store should be preserved. And we also think that content will never change radically. It must be available in different formats and paper, including paper. You'd like to say something? The newsstand, the news kiosk was or played a social role in the history of the country, a place of aggregation, especially in Italy made of 3,000, 4,000 municipalities, whatever. And also the newsstand was a place of democracy. You could go there and find all newspapers, which was not always possible in other countries. They have a different distribution pattern. So newsstands are disappearing at a very frantic pace every month. dozens, if not hundreds, of newsstands are closing everywhere in Italy, especially after the summer. So newsstands must be modernized, they must go digital. There is a project on the way because they cannot be disconnected from the digital world. So there must be a place where you can also find online digital products in different forms, perhaps with some business models which must be totally new. Stefano, what about film industry? Consumers decide whether to go to these places or not. Because at the end of the day, the final choice is in the hands of consumers. We cannot go against them. Stores can change, of course. I always make the example of people who used to work on horseshoes. And then, the car shop became an important place. And then some people became or started working in gas stations. So, I mean, the world changes. And then the consumer decides where to go, and people have to change. So you were the first ones to get out of the tunnel, so record stores, music stores were the first ones to close. I don't think so. We are in Milan, and one of the most famous record store was called Mariposa. There was a very nice logo. Now it has become a coffee place. They have the same logo, which now stands, which is now a cup of coffee. So the physical aspect in music is doomed to be a niche product. With streaming services, you can listen to almost any type of music. And I used to love Led Zeppelin, so I have this connection, this emotional connection with the physical product. But either you adapt or you die, and we have decided to adapt. Of course, there is an emotional aspect. We'd love a nice vinyl, and they're growing, in fact. But we have to change, and we know this. And then it depends on the type of audience. Next week in Rome, we'll have Bruce Springsteen. And if you interview his audience, they are still buying records. All right, thank you very much. You also gave us a nice image of modernity. Thank to you all.